Hi, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Ponzio. I am going to start off telling you the story of Texas and its history. This is something that we are going to be discussing throughout the first trimester. And we are going to cover the time from when Texas didn't even exist, or we didn't even know that the land existed, all the way through to when it joins the United States as a state. Our story begins in Europe, this pink continent right up there. And here we have a nice zoomed in picture of Europe. And if you look, our story specifically begins here in Spain, this purple country right here. In Spain, there lived a man named Christopher Columbus, and this is Christopher Columbus right here in this picture. Christopher Columbus was an explorer. The world during this time was mostly undiscovered. There was a lot of land that they had never even heard of or been to or seen, and it was really very untouched. So Christopher Columbus's job was to take ships and men and go explore the world, try to find new things, try to find faster ways to get places. They really had no idea what the world looked like at the time. In this painting, Christopher Columbus is trying to convince the King and Queen of Spain to let him go and discover a new way to get to the Orient. Now, the Orient is what they in Europe used to call Asia, the continent of Asia that we think of now. And they knew that there were riches to be had in Asia. They had been there before, and they knew that they had gold, spices. So it was a place that explorers really went very often. Their kings and queens of Spain were more than willing to give them money, boats, and men to go to the Orient because they knew that they were going to bring back a great deal of riches for them. However, this journey was really long. The way that they used to go was not very convenient, and it lasted many months. So Christopher Columbus is saying to the King and Queen of Spain that he thinks he has a shorter way to get there, and that it would benefit them for them to give him more money, more ships, more men to try out this new route to the Orient or to Asia. Because theoretically, if it worked, then explorers could get to the Orient faster and back faster with more riches. Now, at this time, people living in Europe had no idea that this whole section of the world existed. They thought that the world was just what's on this side of the globe. And so they had normally, when traveling to the Orient, thought that they were going to have to go all the way down around Africa, around the Indian Ocean, through all these islands, and up to the Orient this way. If they wanted to travel by sea, that was their only choice. They could only get so far through these small channels here, and so they knew that that wasn't a good option. Now, being that Christopher Columbus and his friends had no idea that North America and South America existed, he thought that the world was round and that if he was able to leave from Europe right here, and if he kept going, he imagined that he would be able to go right like this around the globe and to Asia. He never thought that there would be anything in this region other than Asia, and so he assumed that by crossing the Atlantic Ocean, the first thing that he would hit would be Asia or the Orient. Columbus thought that this was a very new and exciting way to get to Asia because he thought it would be so much quicker than going all around Africa and through the Indian Ocean. So this was his pitch to the King and Queen of Spain. After they agreed to let him take 3 ships to the Orient, he embarked on his journey. Christopher Columbus and his ships departed from Spain here and went across the Atlantic Ocean, and it took them a very long time. And finally, they reached a very small island off the coast of Florida. And they decided that they were in the Orient. They had reached Asia and they celebrated. They stayed there for a nice long time and they finally came to the understanding that this was not Asia, but this new world, this new area that they had never even known existed. To their delight, however, they discovered that North America and the region around it had riches just as they had hoped Asia would have. So they found gold, they found spices, they found crops that they had never seen before. And so they were really excited about this. And they brought some of these wonderful things back all the way to Spain once more. They found the king and queen of Spain. They showed them everything that they had found, and they told them that they had discovered a new world. Word of this new world spread rapidly. After the king and queen of Spain had heard about how wonderful this was going to be, that news spread up to France. And the king and queen of France heard about the riches that Spain had gathered from this new world. And from there, all the way to England. And the king and queen of England heard about these riches that Spain had received from this new world. And the king and queens of all three of these countries decided that they wanted to have the riches that the new world offered, and they wanted it all to themselves. The kings and queens of these three countries knew that not only would those spices and the gold and all of those wonderful crops provide wealth and power for them, but most of all, the opportunity that they saw was for land. They knew that if there was land available, unclaimed land, that if they claimed it for their specific countries, they were going to be able to expand in power, which of course is what a lot of rulers are focused on. They want that power. So in this case, it's kind of like first come, first serve, right? The first people to get there are going to be the people who get the most land. So if you and your country can get there first, then you can lay claim to as much of this new world as you possibly can. And obviously, that brought on a very competitive race that began. So here we are with all three of these rulers deciding and thinking to themselves that they want more land, right? So we have Spain set off, and France and their explorers set off shortly after them for North America, or what they called the New World, and the race was on. The very first group to arrive was Spain. They landed in Florida, Mexico, and Texas. This was a separate excursion from the one that Columbus initially did, and they explored the islands south of Florida, and then they went around these areas into Texas and into Mexico, down and over there. They were the first ones to arrive. The second ones to arrive, the second place was France. And France and their explorers landed in Louisiana and East Texas. So they were the second ones to lay claim to land in this new world for their countries and the kings and queens they served.